A predator stalked the ancient seas, a shark so large and fearsome, nothing in the seas could escape its hunger. Here are 50 of the most insane facts about the Megalodon. Number 50. Jawsome. The main way most people know the Megalodon shark is through recreations and reconstructions of its jawbone. You can usually see it on display hanging in museums, including the Museum of Natural History in New York City. It looms over people, and a close-up look indicates that we'd be nothing more than a snack for the giant shark. The jaws could reach around 3 meters wide, more than big enough for an adult human to stand between them. It's estimated that the shark could swallow 2 people at the same time. But we don't know as much as we would like about the Megalodon. Number 49. Mystery Monster. It's not hard to find Megalodon jaws on display, but why doesn't any museum have a complete Megalodon skeleton? No one does, because they're impossible to find. Their skeletons were made of cartilage, not bone, and cartilage degrades quickly and doesn't fossilize. So the exact anatomy of a Megalodon shark has been lost to the ages, but we can guess what they were like based on similar sharks today. But one area of the Megalodon has left us a lot of evidence. Number 48. A sharp reminder. The vast majority of Megalodon fossils are teeth, and sharks have no shortage of those. The Megalodon had a shocking 276 teeth lining its massive mouth. Because the sharks shed their teeth and regrow them frequently, the ancient predator littered the ocean with its larger-than-average chompers. How much larger? A single Megalodon tooth fossil found in South Carolina weighed around 3 pounds and measured 6.5 inches. And these teeth have been found for a long time. Number 47. A founding find. A Megalodon tooth is quite the collector's item to put on display in the office. One founding father agreed, Thomas Jefferson. He was an avid fossil collector and had pieces of large ancient animals in his home. He had mastodon and other Ice Age fossils, but his Megalodon tooth might have been his favorite, and he had a unique way of marking its Megalodon tooth. He put his signature on it. And sometimes these teeth are found in unexpected places. Number 46. That bites. Some Megalodon teeth are found lying around from when they fall out, but others came out prematurely, when the Megalodon bit into a large animal and bit off more than it could chew. Scientists have found the bones of ancient whales to contain embedded Megalodon teeth, likely indicating a close escape from death or a fatal attack. Sometimes it's just markings from where the Megalodon bit. But whale vertebrae with a few embedded teeth have been found, and they had quite the bite. Number 45. Crush factor. Bite force is measured in newtons, and for a long time the Tyrannosaurus rex was believed to have the most powerful bite in history. It's not hard to see why. Look at those mighty jaws. But after studying the Megalodon, scientists now believe the ancient shark had an even more powerful bite, packing a stunning pressure up to 40,000 pounds. There's no way of proving it conclusively, but it may be the most powerful bite of any creature to ever live. Now let's break down the rest of the massive creature. Number 44. How big? With no Megalodon skeletons available and only the teeth and vertebrae still existing, scientists had to extrapolate to figure out just how big it actually was. Their conclusion: it was really big. The smallest adult Megalodons were likely around 33 feet, but much larger teeth have been found. The estimate of the largest Megalodons ever is as much as 67 feet long, making them one of the largest marine predators of all time. So, how did they compare to today's alpha shark? Number 43. Not so great white. The great white shark is probably the most feared living shark, with almost no natural predators and being responsible for more bite attacks on humans than any other shark. But compared to the Megalodon, it's a shrimp. The largest female great white sharks are around 20 feet in length, with most being no more than 15 feet. Surfers everywhere breathe a sigh of relief that they won't be encountering any Megalodons, and they haven't for a very long time. Number 42. Not a man-eater. Would the Megalodon like to chow down on a human? Maybe. Did they ever get to? Nope, because they were gone from Earth long before we were on it. The estimate of when Megalodon lived is around 23 million years ago, at the beginning of the Miocene era. They stuck around as the ocean's most feared beast until around 3.6 million years ago, long before humans evolved into their current form. And their closest descendant may not be what you think. Number 41. Missing link. Most people depict the Megalodon as a giant great white shark when it appears on TV and in movies. In reality, while their tooth shape is pretty similar, they seem to have evolved separately and have some similar traits. But the Megalodon does have a closer living relative. It's the smaller mako shark. And in fact, ancient great white sharks were around at the time and might have wound up being bullied out of hunting grounds by the Megalodon. So what did those giant beasts eat? Anything they wanted. Number 40. Hungry sharks. The Megalodon was one of the largest sea animals of the time and had no natural predators. Would you want to pick a fight with it? As such, it's believed that it was fairly indiscriminate in what it ate. If it swam in its hunting grounds and seemed edible, it was food. Megalodon likely ate a lot of fish as well as any cephalopods or reptiles that came into its orbit, and went for some bigger prey like ancient whales as well. And the odds are anything it set its eyes on wasn't getting away. But one part of its diet might have been a bit more controversial. Number 39. Cannibal. Did Megalodon eat other sharks? It's believed by scientists they did. Most other sharks at the time were much smaller than Megalodon, and while they may not have been the killer shark's preferred food, it likely had no problem chowing down when needed. This is fairly common in nature. While it's unlikely for land predators to hunt each other, it's pretty common in the modern seas for one hungry fish to wander into the hunting grounds of another and jump. But it's likely nothing was hunting the Megalodon. Number 38. Welcome to the apex. The Megalodon was an apex predator, aka a predator at the top of the food chain. While food chains on land usually only have a few levels, it's common for there to be many levels in the ocean. And a look at the prehistoric climate indicates there was nothing that could have hunted the Megalodon. While there might have been some animals that could give it a fight, it was more likely to be a competition for prey than an attempt to make the Megalodon their prey. It was truly the king of the prehistoric seas. But how would it do against other apex predators of the sea? Number 37. Whale Wars. Megalodon wasn't the only apex predator of its era, and one was almost as massive. Leviathan was a massive extinct sperm whale, and was given an impressive name inspired by the biblical Leviathan. Its powerful jaws snapped up seals and smaller whales, and it competed with the Megalodon for prey. But how did it compare with the Megalodon? It was between 44 and 57 feet long and had large, sharp teeth. While Leviathan had thicker skin and could attack with its tail, Megalodon is believed to have had the more powerful bite force, so if the shark gets the drop on the whale, it's likely over. Now let's head back to the beginning. Number 36. Not a shrimp. How would Megalodon compare against the very first known apex predator? Let's turn the clock back to the Cambrian period, when the Animalicarius ruled the seas. This large shrimp-like arthropod had a huge tail fan and grasping front appendages to snatch up any creature of the era. It was the terror of the Cambrian, and to the Megalodon it would be nothing more than a light snack. This apex predator was little more than a foot long and could be swallowed whole with ease. Apex predators had a long way to go. Let's jump forward a little as things get fishy. Number 35. Hard-headed. The Devonian period was where we saw the birth of the first kings of the seas, large bony fishes, and their king was the Dunkleosteus, known for its distinct armored head and its large snapping jaws. It was large, having a length of up to 28 feet and weighing more than 4 tons. Its bite force was over 1,300 pounds, unparalleled for the era, but nothing compared to the Megalodon. If the two fought, Dunkleosteus' only hope would be its armored head breaking some teeth on the Megalodon, but the odds are its fleshy bits would be easy prey. Now let's jump forward to the Jurassic period where reptiles dominated the seas. Number 34. The first reptile king. It was the early Jurassic and a fearsome predator ruled the seas. Named Leopleurodon, it was a short-necked pliosaur with a large body and one deadly feature, a long snout containing powerful jaws full of sharp teeth. Its bite force was as much as 33,000 pounds, one of the most powerful ever recorded alongside Megalodon. It was likely the first one of the apex predators who could have given Megalodon a true fight, but its smaller size, up to 21 feet in length, would have put it at a disadvantage. So would its more vulnerable neck. One bite in the wrong place from the shark and it's likely game over. And as the age of the dinosaurs drew on, the apex predators of the seas grew only larger. Number 33. Cretaceous warriors. Mosasaurus ruled the seas during the last days of the dinosaurs, and it's not hard to see why. The lizard was big. It was over twice the size of Leopleurodon, with its length topping out at 56 feet in the biggest specimens. It was also much more agile than other predators, with its 4 limbs steering it and its jaws and neck more flexible than other predators of the era. But its jaws weren't quite as big as its competition, with a bite force of only 16,000 pounds. Mosasaurus might have been able to elude Megalodon effectively, but it wouldn't be able to get a bite in. But was it truly the king of the Cretaceous? Number 32. Fear the Kronosaurus. It might not have been the biggest sea predator of the era, but the Kronosaurus might have been the deadliest. It ranged from 30 to 36 feet and was known for its massive snapping jaws, powerful enough to grab large pliosaurs out of the water. Its jaws had a bite force of up to 30,000 pounds, more than 6 times as much as a modern-day crocodile. That's still a little below the Megalodon, and its smaller size and lack of mobility meant it needed a lot of luck to go up against the mega shark. And as the age of the dinosaurs ended, new threats emerged. Number 31. Crocodile Rock. Crocodiles have been around for over 100 million years, largely unchanged. If you were a massive reptilian killing machine, why would you fix what isn't broken? But in the waning days of the Cretaceous, crocodiles were one thing: bigger. The Dinosuchus could reach up to 35 feet in length and had the same powerful snapping jaws as today's alligators and crocodiles. Its bite force was stronger than that of a Tyrannosaurus at 18,000 pounds, but still well below the Megalodon. And due to its slower nature as an ambush predator, it's unlikely it could get the drop on the Megalodon. And as we headed into the age of mammals, new powerhouses dominated the seas. Number 30. The first whale king. You might be fooled into thinking the reptiles of the dinosaur era survived somehow, but the Basilosaurus was something else entirely. An early marine mammal, it was the apex predator of the Paleogene seas and would regularly eat sharks and early dolphins. At up to 66 feet long, its serpent-like body was meant for fast movement, but its bite force of 3,600 pounds was nothing compared to the Megalodon, and it's believed to have eaten most of its prey alive. It had its eyes on smaller prey and would likely give Megalodon a wide berth. Megalodon was the king of the ancient seas, but would that be true today? Number 29. Modern whale king. The largest animals to ever live are in today's seas, including the massive blue whale. This filter-feeding whale is the largest animal of all time, but it's not a predator. The king of today's predators is the modern sperm whale, a bulky creature that can reach 68 feet in length. Its head is a third of its length, and it has the largest brain of any animal. Unlike other whales of its size, it hunts and eats massive amounts of fish. But because they have smaller teeth, their bite force is much less than their ancestor Leviathan. They're large enough to give the Megalodon a good fight, but they're not evolved to fight a shark of that size. So, the Megalodon might be the king of the seas, but is it truly the king of the sharks? Number 28. Whale or shark? The Megalodon dwarfs any predatory shark today, but there's one that compares in size. The whale shark is a massive beast, reaching over 60 feet in length and being the largest non-mammal vertebrate on the planet. But it's not a threat to anyone except plankton and tiny fish. It's a filter feeder like many whales. While its size is comparable to the Megalodon, no specimen has been found to reach the size of the largest estimated Megalodon, so it's likely the Megalodon maintains its title as the king of the sharks. And we're still learning all we can about this massive apex predator. Number 27. Heavyweight. Megalodon, known by scientists as Otodus megalodon, wasn't just one of the deadliest predators to ever live, it was one of the largest. The massive shark is estimated to have weighed roughly 100 tons at the high end. That makes it the weight of more than 2 18-wheeler trucks or almost 15 elephants. And they were big from the get-go. Number 26. Baby, well, you know the rest. While most fish lay eggs, the majority of modern sharks give birth to live young. That was also likely the case for Megalodon, and a baby Megalodon was still terrifying. Scientists collected samples of young Megalodon teeth, and the smallest specimens they found indicated that babies were still larger than an average human, with newborn Megalodons being around 6.5 feet long. And it didn't take long for them to start hunting. And sometimes you could find a lot of them in one place. Number 25. Hush, little baby. A nursery usually brings to mind some nice images of many babies being cared for, but a Megalodon nursery would have been a very different place. That's exactly what scientists found off the coast of Panama, a fossil collection full of teeth of young Megalodons. Sharks use warm water nurseries with shallow water to protect their young, allowing them to hunt smaller prey before they take their rightful place atop the food chain. And the biology might not have been exactly what was expected. Number 24. Hot-blooded. Most fish are cold-blooded, but scientists increasingly think that Megalodons may have been built differently. Called regional endothermy, it gives these massive sharks the ability to warm their bodies independently when hunting in colder waters, giving them greater endurance and range than most deep-sea hunters. And this has persisted to the present day. Another creature with this ability is the great white shark. But how did they get so big? Number 23. Everything's bigger in the Mesozoic. The era might have been the Texas of time periods, because the Mesozoic era saw some of the largest mammals and other creatures to ever walk the earth. While they didn't reach the size of the biggest dinosaurs, animals in this era benefited from a high level of nutrients in the ocean. They grew larger, and that meant an abundance of large prey in the seas for large predators to develop. But Megalodon outclassed almost all of them. Whales were among its favorite food. And they had unusual hunting techniques. Number 22. Blam! You might think that Megalodon's best weapon was its razor-sharp teeth or its crushing bite. But while those might be great close-up weapons, it's actually relied on another element to give it an edge. It was fast and it was strong. And when you combine those things, it could have rammed prey at high speed. Fossils of prey animals discovered had shattered spines before they were eaten, the kind of thing that happened when a mega shark body slams into you. But they were also masters of stealth. Number 21. Dun-dun. Why is the ocean one of the hardest places to avoid a predator? Because they can come at you from all directions. On land, a wolf isn't going to ambush you from below the ground, though graboids certainly will. While megalodons were good hunters and could easily sneak up from behind, they could also come up from under their prey, ambushing them from below like a black hole ringed with countless razor-sharp teeth. And it was not easy to get away. Number 20. Speed sharks. Megalodons were huge, and that usually doesn't pair well with speed. But as chunky and bulky as these killer sharks were, they were actually believed to be very fast. Scientists studied similar sharks and came up with an estimate they could swim around 11 miles an hour, faster than many of their prey animals, and more than twice the speed of the fastest human swimmers today. And it wasn't going to be easy to avoid them. Number 19. They're everywhere. The primordial seas were far different than today's, and the geography of the ocean was different. But one thing was for sure, no matter where an animal was swimming, a megalodon wasn't far away. These sharks were around most areas of the world, and we know this because their fossils have been found on every continent of the world besides Antarctica. They weren't cold weather hunters. And humans have been wondering about these creatures for a long time. Number 18. Ancient aliens? The first evidence of the megalodon was teeth found almost 2,000 years ago. But there were no paleontologists in those days, and the diggers who found strange giant teeth were left with one question. What are these strange triangles? There were a lot of them, which led Roman philosopher Pliny the Elder to speculate that they were gifts from the stars that fell during eclipses. And in the Middle Ages, there were even odder theories. Number 17. There be dragons. It was still hundreds of years before the discovery of fossils would become commonplace and they would be identified. But there were still interesting theories. Many believed these strange triangles were actually dragon tongues or scales. They'd never seen a dragon, but the look kind of matches. That led the teeth to become fashion statements. People would wear them as pendants and good luck charms that people would use in traditional medicine. But eventually there was a eureka moment. Number 16. The discovery. It was 1611 when Italian naturalist Fabio Colonna realized what these mysterious items actually were. They weren't eclipse tears or tongues, they were shark teeth. It would be more than 50 years before it was proven to the scientific community, as Nicholas Steno published a work discussing the anatomy of a shark. Shockingly, the teeth looked exactly like giant versions of those teeth, and people realized that the ancient oceans were a very scary place. The work of recreating the megalodon would increase from there. Number 15. An iffy estimate. Only teeth and jaw fragments of the megalodon were found, so it fell to scientists to try to create a better picture of its size. The first to try successfully was American zoologist Brashford Dean in 1909. He created a massive jaw that could have belonged to a creature almost 100 feet long, but he had overestimated the cartilage size. Over the decades that followed, different scientists would have different estimates, and the debate is ongoing to this day. But another piece of evidence has been found. Number 14. Ew. Aside from teeth, jaw fragments, and vertebrae, one more piece of evidence has been found. Coprolites. These are fossilized pieces of megalodon poop that have given scientists the only known evidence of the creature's internal physiology. This is because the poops are spiral-shaped, indicating that the shark's lower intestines may have been corkscrew-shaped. This is similar to many of today's sharks. And the megalodon has made a big impact ever since it was discovered. Number 13. Place of honor. 45 of 50 U.S. states have a state fossil, usually one found within their borders. The most common choices include mammoths, dinosaurs, prehistoric mammals, or even ancient fish and squids. But 2 states picked sharks. Georgia picked a patch of smaller shark teeth from the Cretaceous-Miocene era, and North Carolina picked the megalodon's massive chomper. And soon enough, Hollywood got into the action. Number 12. Shark attack. The 1970s blockbuster Jaws, based on the book by Peter Benchley, made millions of people in America terrified of sharks. Its oversized robot shark, nicknamed Bruce, was one of the most advanced robot beasts ever used in the film. But compared to the Megalodon, Bruce was actually a shrimp, less than half the size of the legendary beast. But the Megalodon would make its film debut soon enough. Number 11. Schlock Shark. The low-budget film company The Asylum, notorious for rip-off movies like Snakes on a Train and Transmorphers, would get in on the action with the Mega Shark series. A giant shark would somehow get into battles with other large creatures like giant octopus or crocosaurs. Needless to say, there was very little in the way of scientific accuracy in those films. But one franchise would give the Megalodon its due. Number 10. Call him Meg. Writer Stephen Alton knew the Megalodon was primed for a starring role, and his 1997 book Meg, a novel of deep terror, brought the Megalodon back into the public eye. It spawned several sequels, and fans waited for a movie adaptation. They waited 21 years, but the 2018 action movie The Meg pitted Jason Statham against the ancient beast. While the movie wasn't believed to be entirely accurate if you ask paleontologists, they got closer than The Asylum. Did you ever want to face the Megalodon head-on? Number 9. Boss Fight. In 1998, video game fans got the chance to come up close and personal with the Megalodon. They just had to step inside a video game cabinet called Ocean Hunter. This Japanese rail shooting game pitted a steampunk hunter against a host of sea monsters. The bosses included a giant squid, a massive anglerfish, a Lasmosaurus, and yes, a Megalodon. Ironically, the giant shark here was named Leviathan, closer to its whale rival. But one place saw the Megalodon get an even bigger spotlight. Number 8. Welcome to Shark Week. For 1 week every year, the Discovery Channel airs a host of documentaries and pseudoscience programs dedicated to sharks. While marine biologists have claimed this is sensationalistic and puts sharks into more danger, it's their highest-rated week of the year. It was only a matter of time before the Megalodon got in the spotlight. And in one fictionalized film on Animal Planet, they even had the massive shark going up against mermaids. But one piece of content was even more controversial. Number 7. Extinct or not? In 2013, Discovery Channel featured a film titled Megalodon, the Monster Shark Lives. It was a collection of evidence that the shark was still around and stalking the oceans. With only one problem, it was all completely fictional. With even the scientists appearing turning out to be paid actors, Discovery Channel was hit with a wave of bad press, laughed all the way to the bank, and produced several sequels. But is there any real evidence that the Megalodon is still alive? Number 6. Blast from the past. In 1873, everything we knew about the Megalodon was challenged when the HMS Challenger discovered a cache of seemingly fresh teeth. Scientists dated them to as little as 11,000 years ago, which would mean the shark was sharing space with humans. But further investigation revealed that the well-preserved teeth actually had a coating of manganese dioxide, which gave them a much lower rate of decomposition and gave them a white appearance even when fossilized. But if the Megalodon is truly gone, how did it die? Number 5. Deep freeze. One of the first theories is climate change, a word we're hearing a lot about now. The last Megalodon fossils are dated around the time of an ice age, and scientists thought that might have finished off the massive beasts. The sharks preferred warmer climates and their young relied on them, and the prey moving to colder waters might have finished them off. But there's reason to doubt this theory. Number 4. Polar Bear Club. Scientists continuing to study Megalodon physiology discovered that the sharks could likely swim in waters near the freezing point. This was one of the biggest pieces of evidence yet that they could have weathered the changing climate due to not being fully cold-blooded. But just because they could survive doesn't mean anything could. Number 3. Hunger pangs. What actually killed off Megalodon? The most likely theory is that they just died due to changes in the food chain. While they could survive in harsh climates, many of their preferred prey animals went extinct during the Ice Age. Being massive, the Megalodon needed a lot of food. And as the climate changed, it became harder and harder to find it. Competition became tougher and the population dwindled eventually to nothing. But could they still be lurking deep down below? Number 2. Predators of the deep. A common theory, and one that shows up in a lot of fictionalized Megalodon stories, is that they survived and became deep-sea predators, down where no one can see them. But this is unlikely, and the deep-sea ecosystem doesn't have enough food sources to sustain a massive carnivorous beast. This leads to one simple fact. Number 1. Hail and farewell. The Megalodon is most definitely extinct. While the exact cause of its extinction isn't known beyond a doubt, most of the giant animals on land and sea died around this era. And while theories abound, one fact is not up for debate. Not only have no Megalodon fossils been found dated less than 2.6 million years, but no evidence of their teeth or bites on other animals can be found. If Megalodon was still around, it would need to eat, so the logical conclusion is that it joined the dinosaurs, and swimmers everywhere can breathe a sigh of relief. Want to know more about how this massive beast met its end? Check out the why and how of the Megalodon extinction, what killed the giant shark, or watch largest animal size comparison for how it fares against the big guns.